It's the murder and the lies. I am still reeling and in such pain for the children, the friends, and the family members of the Minnesota mom who was shot by an ICE agent yesterday morning. She was 37 years old, Renee Nicole Good. This is literally now a story of good versus evil, and we cannot let evil win. I want to share with you a photo. Here she is. This is Nicole. I'm sorry. This is Renee Nicole Good. Some other photo had gone around, but this is her. And of course, there are different images of her, but you may have seen one that doesn't quite look like this. The information came out as to her identity. She was brutally shot. She was unarmed. She was in her car with her partner, trying to move out of the way of these ICE officers who have been trying to get her to clear the road. Before her name was even public, Kristi Noem, head of the Department of Homeland Security, and Donald Trump were lying their asses off, claiming she is or was a domestic terrorist, claiming she was trying to run the officers down, that she was a danger to the public. They were saying this. They were smearing this murdered woman, even though we had all seen the video. And it is clear that the officer who fired shots first directly through the windshield into her face and kept shooting as she was trying to pull away and smashed into a tree. It is clear he was not in any danger. It is clear that he violated the federal government's, the Department of Justice's guidelines on use of excessive force. We can still watch that, and they are still lying. And I can't even say that I am angry, because my sadness is overwhelming, because this kind of shit has been happening to Black people in America for decades. This is why the defund the police movement happened. And I want to be clear. I want law enforcement around. I want the public to be protected against violent criminals. I want safety in homes and in streets. And at the same time, I want police generally, the normal police officers at the county or the city or the state level, to be well trained and not to be able to continually get away with excessive use of force. We're going to talk about those legal issues. Now, I'm talking about normal police, but when it comes to ICE, the Immigration and Customs Enforcement, abolish ICE, period. End of story. Abolish ICE. This is not the radical position. Abolish ICE is the moderate position. Bill Flippin' Crystal believes in abolish ICE. We all must get behind abolish ICE. We do not want these masked, armed, dangerous people without training for whom the government will lie, terrorizing communities. And this includes whether in this case it was an American citizen or it was someone who is not. Let me be absolutely clear. What ICE is doing is not designed to keep us safe. Anyone who is a murderer or a rapist or a dangerous person who is not a citizen can still be apprehended through the normal justice system. We must abolish ICE. And once again, may we always remember and do good by Renee Nicole Good. Let me say, as the details come out about her, she is or was the mother of 3 children, the youngest of which was 6 years old. She had been married to 2 different men. First, she has some, I believe they're teenage children. I had her first husband, and I think I have the details here. She had 2 children with, and they're older at this point. And someone in the chat can remind me. I know at least one is a teenager, maybe both are teenagers. And then she and her second husband had a 6-year-old. That second husband had passed away, I think in 2023. And Renee Nicole Good was raising that 6-year-old with her partner in Minneapolis. Her partner, a woman, was in the car with her when ICE murdered her, shot her in the face. Okay, again, it's the murder and it is the lies. Now, I want to share with you, and I think you probably have seen quite a number of times, the video. I want to share with you Josh Campbell, who did this for CNN. He's an ex-FBI agent. He's a really great guy. I think I met him in real life back when, I think it was the first time I met Allison Gill when she was doing a live Mueller, She Wrote show out in Brooklyn. And Josh was there. I want to share with you how he walks through step by step what happened. And I promise you, we are going to leave today's show with a plan. We cannot simply grieve. We can go to vigils, and there have been beautiful vigils in her honor. We need to do more, and I'm going to tell you an action plan for the next steps. Okay, so first, let me, I do want to share with you what, and I think I've got this. One sec. So you're going to see, I think I've got this. Okay. And this is, again, Josh Campbell, former FBI agent, who is going to break this down for us. Okay, let's play it.
Put this video under the microscope and walk through it. And I can tell you, I've watched this over 24 times right now. The focal point is going to be the front left fender of that vehicle, and the agent that is then beyond it who decides to open fire. Now, the way agents are trained, first of all, and the police chief alluded to this in the press conference, is that they're not permitted to fire into a moving vehicle solely for the purpose of disabling the vehicle. When you look at that video, you can actually see that vehicle making contact, the front left of that vehicle, with the ICE agent who was there. But again, it'll come down to a matter of question. Could that agent have moved out of the way? They're not required to retreat. There's no duty to retreat when facing someone who may be potentially violent. Now, there's another thing to point out too, and that's the angle that we see from the bystander, is that it appears just before the shots are fired, the front wheels on that vehicle turn to the right. That's an indication, obviously, to us from that vantage point that the driver is about to move out of that location toward the right. That's why this is such a powder keg, because there are essentially 2 aspects of this. There's the policy, the law, what agents are allowed to do, and there's an issue of judgment. Just because you can do something, should you? That is why we're going to continue to see, I think, this outrage, because that agent's decision to pull his weapon, if he indeed found himself in a situation where he's in fear for his life, caused the death of a local resident there.
Now, I want to be really clear with you about this. Josh Campbell on CNN, the clips that he showed you did not show you what happened next. He is making the best case. He's trying to show you how they're going to try to spin this. But I need to show you the full video, because what you understand is the officer in the front, even if her wheel slightly made contact with him and she was turning, he shot her in the head. And then the car continues and he keeps shooting a couple of times as she's pulling away. And then he doesn't limp. He doesn't fall to the ground. He walks over to where her car had smashed into the tree. And then people start yelling at him and he says, "I'm calling 911." And then he walks all the way back. Not injured at all. So I feel that we need to really see. We need to really look at the video, right? We really need to see the full shooting without it being cut off, okay? So what I do want you to see this raw footage, and I want you to see, most importantly, what an eyewitness tells us who was there, what she saw, right? Okay, so we are going to do that right now, because you are seeing what I saw with my own eyes and what Josh said even were slightly different, right? So let's talk first. Let's start first with Chris Hayes.
Good evening from New York. I'm Chris Hayes. Tonight, thousands of people have gathered in the streets of Minneapolis and other places around the country in protest. A 37-year-old American citizen, the mother of a young child, is dead tonight. She was shot in the face by an agent of the federal government, and that government has spent the day telling despicable lies about her. The highest officials in the land slandering the victim as a domestic terrorist, running cover for their agents' actions before the earliest details were even available. Her name, identified by the Star Tribune, is Renee Nicole Good. She was the driver of a vehicle in an area where ICE was conducting operations as part of a surge of enforcement ordered by Donald Trump. The government wants you to believe this 37-year-old mother of a young child conducted a ramming attack against the agents, but by now you have probably seen the extremely disturbing video that shows what really happened.
Okay. I want you guys to look at this. I'm going to slow this down because this is what my analysis didn't work for the FBI. I have eyes like you. And I want to show you right here. Okay. The people here you see on the left in this shot, none of them, these two are approaching her. Her car, we don't know what happens before this, but her car obviously is across the middle line. In front of her to the right is another car. I don't know if that's an ICE car blocking her or if, what is going on. My understanding is that the people in this neighborhood heard ICE was here and they didn't want them conducting raids. And so my understanding is that she may have pulled her car to stop the ICE caravan. And perhaps the car to her right was doing the same thing, or maybe that's an ICE vehicle. I don't know. When they approach her, these two guys, they're telling her to get out of the way, get out of the way. They're going to come up to her window. What you don't see here yet is who the shooter is. So I'm going to get out of the shot. We're going to watch that. I'm going to stop it for you. No! Okay. So you see right here in this shot, we have her starting to put her taillights on, pulling backwards. and her window's open. She was talking with them, and this ICE officer tries to open her car door, which is locked. And there's one guy behind her. Now watch. I think if you look really carefully, someone's shouting no. Right? I mean, I don't know if you can see this, but there's the ICE officer who is trying to open her door. Over his left shoulder, in other words, between, like sort of toward the front of the car, there is a guy standing there without a hood on. You can barely see his head. And he's got a mask. You can barely see that. And he's right there. Okay? And then she's pulling back. And now he's over the officers on the other side. You can kind of see this sort of blob over his left shoulder right there. No. Okay, look at this. I think you need to see his elbow goes up and reaches for his gun. She has not reversed yet. She's still going backwards. Again, watch these seconds. Okay. So watch this. No! No! Okay. So now she's reversing at this point, not accelerating, right? Keep going. Now I want you to look at that moment right here where he reaches in. Okay. So here she is. She's still backing up the car. He is standing in front of her car as she's backing up. He could have gotten out of the way. He's standing in front of her vehicle on purpose so that he can assist the guy trying to open it up and pull her out. Okay, if she's obstructing traffic, then he should just get out of the way and let her drive off. But look now. Look real carefully. Okay, I'm moving it. Look at right there. Oops, damn it. Did you see that? Look carefully if you're watching on your phone or a screen. Look at the guy's right arm, not the man standing at the door, but the man right behind him is got his arm up like this, his right arm, and do you see this? It's kind of an elbow move, and he's pulled his gun out. Do you see that? He's pulled his gun out. And the people are shouting. And now she's trying to turn her car. Instead of getting out of the way, this guy, as soon as she moved forward, pulled his gun out. Boom. He shot. Look at that. He's still holding his arms out, leaning forward. That shot happened. And he's still pointing directly at her. Is he in any danger? And then he shot again. Ask yourself, Josh Campbell, great guy. Why didn't he show that? Why didn't CNN show that? Okay, let's watch. I'm going to get out of the shot again so you can see this. Okay. And now the guy. So now you know who the shooter is. His arm is still cocked up. He's the one in the front, right? Let's watch what he does.
Oh my God! What the What the
So this woman is screaming, oh my effing God, what the F, what the F? We see that Renee Good has smashed her car in the front. This guy here on the left, he's the officer who shot. Let's keep watching.
You just what the did you do?
Okay, he's still walking. What you don't see next, guys, is that guy who walked up there. People are still shouting at him. And he walks back. You saw him move his arm up. He had the ability to pull his gun out. That means he had the ability to fall back, to move back. He was standing in front of her car because he wanted aggressively to have this woman pulled out of the car and to use force against her. She was not a danger to anybody. She was parked in the middle of that road. Her window was down. They were telling her to leave. And when they got aggressive with her, she got scared. That is clearly what happened. That is clearly what happened there. And I want to share with you what AOC had to say about this. Let me share this with you. Hold on one second.
So this is now turned into what our greatest fear is and has been for a long time around ICE, that this will be used as an anti-civilian force, that it has no accountability. At the end of the day, what we saw today is a murder. And murders in cold blood need to be prosecuted.
Murders in cold blood need to be prosecuted. That is correct. We're going to talk about what that path will look like and what the challenges are. We'll get to that. I want you now to hear, and this is Kristi Noem's second time she spoke to the press about this. And she is a stone cold liar. Remember, this is the woman who killed her own dog, shot her dog, threw him in like a pit, bragged about it in a book she wrote, then tried to lie about it. Let's play this.
Vehicle encounters, are you going to change the way
You know, people need to stop using their vehicles as weapons. This domestic act of terrorism to use your vehicle to try to kill law enforcement officers is going to stop. And I'm asking the Department of Justice to prosecute it as domestic terrorism because it's clear that it's being coordinated. People are being trained and told how to use their vehicles to impede law enforcement operations and then to run over anybody who gets in their way while they go out there and try to disrupt peace and public safety. And Americans deserve better.
This is completely made up. Just like they call people narco terrorists if they're just fishermen on boats and they murder them. We all said if they can say that, why can't they do that here? Now they're going to call anyone a terrorist who interferes in a way that she claims interferes with law enforcement. Let me tell you, if you actually interfere with law enforcement in an arrest, if you are actually obstructing justice, there are federal and there are also state charges that can be brought against you. We don't have law enforcement getting to be the judge, jury, and executioner. That's not how America is supposed to work. So there's a couple things going on. She's now deciding if you label someone as a domestic terrorist, that they can just murder people in the streets. This is beyond dangerous. And people are calling now. There are articles of impeachment that have been filed against Kristi Noem. Let's see where that goes. But there's more. I want to share with you Mayor Jacob Frey of Minneapolis. I keep wanting to call him Jacob Fry, and so maybe I'm mispronouncing his name. Let's see him. He was actually on CNN. And there's something really fabulous he said, because yesterday, one of the first things he said is what Kristi Noem is saying after her first press conference is bullshit. This was not self-defense, right? So let's hear what he's on with Aaron Burnett, and he is sitting here next to the Minneapolis police chief. Let's listen to Jacob Frey respond to these allegations that his language wasn't good. And I do see someone say the mayor is a cutie. A friend of mine mentioned that. Are we allowed to say that? I think we are. I think good vibes, good feelings about the good side is important. I don't think we are objectifying him in any way. I think we're just sort of saying we adore this guy. He has good juju. Okay, let's play.
And Mr. Mayor, after you told ICE to get the F out of the city, I've seen a lot of Republicans here in Washington criticizing those comments, saying that you're escalating tensions with that. Can you respond to them? And what do you say to them tonight, people who criticize those comments?
I'm so sorry if I offended their Disney princess ears, but here's the thing. If we're talking about what's inflammatory, on the one hand, you got someone who dropped an F-bomb, and on the other hand, you got someone who killed somebody else. F-bomb, killing somebody. I think the more inflammatory action is killing somebody. And so, once again, let's be real and just honest and straight up about what's happening here. This is not okay. The way they're coming into cities, not just Minneapolis, but around the country, is not okay. Whether you're a Democrat or a Republican, you should understand the importance of constitutional law enforcement. You should understand the importance of not discriminating based on race and randomly plucking people off the street because they're Somali or Latino. And especially from what we've seen, you should also understand the importance of de-escalating tense situations, not killing people and yanking out a gun. And so, again, I'm not going to preempt the investigation. It is important that we do that. And at the same time, you know, you want to make a big deal about an F-bomb, let's make a big deal about our Constitution. I think that's probably the better route.
Wow. 100%. Let's be real about this. And this is what Democrats need to do. Republicans have been pretending to be real. They're following, you know, people used to say about Donald Trump, I like what he says because he tells it like it is. No, he actually lied, and he's a racist, and he's a pig, and he's an idiot, and he's a rapist, and all these terrible things, and a liar. But people like that he just spoke in a way that didn't hem and haw. And the side of good needs to do the same thing. Now, I want to share with you, I think this is important. I'm also going to share with you what Congresswoman Stephanie Morrison had to say. I think she is from this district. Let's go.
And DHS claimed that the officer was acting in self-defense. Kristi Noem has described Renee Good's actions as an act of terrorism.
Stephanie, the president and the secretary are asking us to not believe what we're all seeing with our own eyes. We need, you know, it's incredibly irregular for the secretary to come out making pronouncements before the victim had even been identified. We didn't even have her name when she was already calling this person a domestic terrorist. It's outrageous. And what we need is calm. We need a thorough investigation. We need transparency, and we need accountability.
Thank you so much for joining us tonight. I am so very sorry. Thank you again, Congresswoman Morrison.
So that's an example from the House side. Let's hear someone from the Senate. This is Chris Van Hollen of Maryland.
This is awful on so many levels. First, we have the unnecessary shooting death of a 37-year-old mom, unjustified. And then we have the Trump administration, from the Secretary of Homeland Security, Kristi Noem, to the President of the United States, lying about it. Kristi Noem saying this was an act of domestic terrorism, calling this 37-year-old mom essentially a terrorist. And this goes to the heart of the problem we're facing right now. Republicans dramatically increased the funding for ICE and for the Department of Homeland Security with no additional accountability, no real oversight. In fact, just a blank check, as we're seeing now. So, no, I will not vote for a DHS, what we call appropriations bill, unless there are safeguards. Unfortunately, Republicans have refused to work with us to put in place any kind of safeguards to prevent the kind of terrible tragedies we witnessed today in Minneapolis.
Okay, so over in the Senate, so Chris Van Hollen is on the the committee that would be appropriating the funds for this year's budget for ICE, regardless of the billions of dollars they're giving to Homeland, that Donald Trump in his budget wants to give to Homeland Security and to ICE. You still need the appropriations, right? And remember, we had the so-called CR, the continuing resolution. All that means is the committees, like Chris Van Hollen says he's on, of course, the minority person on it because the Republicans had the lead in the Senate. But at any rate, you still need, how do I put this? In order to get an appropriations bill through, you still need 60 votes in the Senate. In order to get the continuing resolution through to fund the government after January 30th, because that's how far the extension was, you still need 60 votes. So there is a way for the Senate to shut this down. of course, there are trade-offs. And we saw Democrats cave because they didn't want to see people not get their paychecks and all this other stuff happening. The question is Chuck Schumer going to stand with him? I'm not going to show you the video of Chuck Schumer hemming and hawing and not really saying what he's going to do. He basically said, well, this and that. I think the senators like Van Hollen need to push him. He is never going to be the person who leads. Now, I think it's really important to share with you a woman named Sarah Ellis, who was right there, who witnessed the shooting of Renee Nicole Good, who doesn't actually want to be doing this, who doesn't want to be actually going on television, but she is here because she saw the lies. She saw the murder and she saw the lies. Let's hear from her, okay?
There was a woman who was a protester. She was blocking traffic with her car. She was parked perpendicularly. So the like convoy, there was probably 6 or 7 ICE vehicles. So she had blocked the traffic so they couldn't get through. And ICE was screaming at her to move, move, move. And then they got really aggressive and went over to her driver's side door and tried to open her door. And then she obviously got spooked and started to reverse. And then an officer approached her and leaned across, like got in front of her vehicle, and then leaned across the hood of her car and shot her point blank in the face. It was 3 or 4 shots. And then her foot just went all the way down on the gas and she tried to escape, and then hit a telephone pole and crashed into some cars. There was only, I feel like there were only like 10 protesters or so. And then, but there were a lot of ICE agents. There were, like I said, like 6 or 7 vehicles, and they all had multiple officers in them. So it was dispersed, but it was extremely chaotic. It didn't seem like the ICE agents knew what they were doing. There was no plan. There was no, they didn't have a plan. They just, they seemed totally unprepared. You could clearly see her slumped over in the car. This neighbor was yelling, "I'm a physician. Can I take vitals? Can I get a heartbeat? Like, can I please come administer CPR?" And they were saying, "No, get back. We don't care." And they said they had medics on their way, which took about 15 minutes of her just sitting there. I mean, I assume deceased that whole time, but no life-saving measures were even attempted.
The Secretary of the Department of Homeland Security and the President.
I'm sorry. There's a little bit more that she had to say. What I want to point out to you, which I think utterly broke so many of us, is her airbag deployed after she was shot because her foot went down on the accelerator and she just tried to get, that was just her instinct after she was shot. And you see blood all over the airbag, but what you also see is the glove compartment popped open probably on the impact, and you see children's toys in there. Okay, let's keep playing.
Measures were even attempted.
The Secretary of the Department of Homeland Security and the President both characterized this as an attack, a domestic terrorist attack, a ramming attack, an attempt to kill or run over ICE agents. You were there and you saw it. What do you think of that characterization?
That's the only reason why I'm here. I don't think I have the best words right now. I'd prefer to not do this, but I knew after witnessing it that this would be misconstrued into self-defense, which it absolutely is not. This was totally preventable and absolutely unnecessary.
She's brave. She's clear. And what's really important is this is an interview with her on the same day of the events. And I guarantee you, the federal investigators and the local investigators had probably not spoken to her yet. This will be very important evidence in the trial against this murderous cop. Now, one thing I want you to be careful about, there are people who are taking, have put up photos of who they claim, photo of this person. I think they're trying to do a still of him, or someone has a photo they think is this guy. And there are folks online saying it's so-and-so's name. I think someone saw a license plate on one of the cars. Do not, and I am not sharing photos or names yet, right? We need to be really smart. We don't know who this ICE officer is. So that's why if you've seen something, I'm not doing it. Now, speaking, because this is the two branches we need accountability, and then we need more. So let me first, in terms of accountability, I've heard something like the Minnesota police are handing this over to the feds. That's not, I don't think true, because we have the Minneapolis police, right, who are still handling it, right? So there's two different things happening. Now, keep in mind, I don't think if the feds are already lying, they ain't gonna prosecute this fairly. Plus, at the federal level, Donald Trump could pardon this guy, right, before he leaves office. So let's keep that in mind. Regardless of there not being a statute of limitations on murder, let's keep in mind, generally speaking, we're talking, this is gonna be state charges probably brought by the district attorney for this county, who would probably enforces the Minnesota law, right? So I want you to hear from the Minneapolis police chief right now.
It did play out on video. The angle that President.
Okay, I want to show you what you're seeing here. This is Aaron Burnett above, and we've got the Minneapolis police chief. What you see there on the right was Minneapolis, Minnesota at 6 p.m. Central time, right? So this was around 7 p.m. last night if you're on the East Coast like me. There were vigils, very nonviolent, peaceful vigils in the street there in other parts of the country. And so while Aaron Burnett is interviewing him, this is on the right. Let's listen to what he has to say.
That's what we have. It did play out on video. The angle that President Trump is sharing appears to show the agent bumped by the vehicle. And he, of course, is characterizing it as he wrote that the woman driving the car was disorderly, obstructing and resisting, and then violently, willfully, and viciously ran over the ICE officer. Is that what happened here? Is that the version you see, or is it different?
I would tell you this much. We owe it to this woman, to her family, and to the American public to ensure that an investigation does occur, and that investigation occurs and it follows all of the available evidence to its logical conclusion. That being said, I can also tell you law enforcement in the United States has been training for many years to try and avoid incidents like this whenever possible, to try and avoid having law enforcement officers placed into a situation with an unarmed motorist where they may have to use force. That's why there is an emphasis on proportionality, an emphasis on if you are able to identify a license plate, identify who the person is, follow up afterwards if there is some independent crime that did occur prior to the incident.
Right. And of course, in this case, all that was readily available. We can all see the license plate information. That would have been very easy to do. And then I'm just stating the facts. Now,
so you heard what they said. If she really had been blocking the road and they thought that was obstructing their law enforcement activities, they had her license plate. They could have let her drive off, and they could have brought federal charges against her. That's not what this is about. This is very dangerous people who are poorly trained, who want to aggressively use force to intimidate, right? To absolutely intimidate and terrorize both immigrants and their allies in this country. And I would like to share with you now the language. So let me share with you the language from the Department of Justice's existing policy right now. So I want to show you this. I want to show you how easy it is to find this. Okay. If you Google DOJ policy on use of force, right, you will get to this, you'll get to the Department of Justice manual, and you will see exactly what I am seeing. Okay. So here is the Justice Manual, Department of Justice policy on use of force. Okay. And here is what we talk about, that law enforcement officers, at least at the DOJ, right, as opposed to Homeland Security. But I just want to let you know, at the DOJ, they must use deadly force only when necessary. That is when the officer has a reasonable belief that the subject of such force poses an imminent danger of death or serious physical injury to the officer or another person. Second, this number one thing, is deadly force may not be used to prevent the escape of a fleeing suspect. You saw him shoot as she was fleeing. 2, firearms may not be discharged solely to disable moving vehicles. Specifically, firearms may not be discharged at a moving vehicle unless, 1, a person in the vehicle is threatening the officer or another person with deadly force by means of other than the vehicle. Or 2, the vehicle is operated in a manner that threatens to cause death or serious physical injury to the officer or others, and no other objectively reasonable means of defense appear to exist, which includes moving out of the path of the vehicle. Firearms may not be discharged from a moving vehicle. This is different. So listen to this. This is the bottom line here. This is the DOJ's policy. Now, I don't know how ICE is trained, what flippin' policies they have, but it doesn't matter because they are lying. They're claiming, and this is why Donald Trump is saying that actually saying the guy was, in the hospital and he was really injured. We saw the guy. He wasn't. He could have easily stepped out of the way. Even if that tire, and I saw him on the other side of it, but even if the tire was close to his foot, ran over his foot, which it appears not to have done, he still is not allowed to use deadly force. The moment, she was backing up her car, it was clear that she was going to try to, because she was in the middle of the road, get around, and he put himself in front of it. He had time to move away. You saw him pull his gun. I'm sorry, but it is clear to me. Now, it doesn't matter again, if that policy prevails, it doesn't matter because this isn't going to be a federal case. We're talking about the potential of a state murder charge against him, right? We saw this in the case of Derek Chauvin, right? You remember this is a police officer who was former Minneapolis police officer who was convicted of murdering George Floyd in 2020. That was just 5 years ago, right? Okay. And, he is still in prison. Apparently he was stabbed 22 times by a fellow inmate. He is seeking a new trial on his murder conviction. So he was found, by the way, guilty. He was found guilty in 2021. The murder was in 2020. So in April 2021, you remember Derek Chauvin? He was the cop they apprehended George Floyd, and he had his knee on his neck and killed him. And you're not going to bring George Floyd back to life, but I want you to know that happened in Minneapolis, and you can bring murder charges against law enforcement. Now, you might say, well, what about federal law enforcement? Can that work? I'm glad that you asked me that question. I mean, you didn't, but I know what you're thinking. And there was a great piece in Slate that was put out yesterday by Brenna Godar. And so we are going to go there. And I'm going to drop this in the chat so you can go back to this article. This is key. Okay, let me drop it in the chat. Okay, this is from Slate. Let me try to make this bigger if I can. And the headline here is Minnesota could prosecute the ICE shooter. Trump can't pardon him. And this is Brenna Godar. And again, Trump could pardon for federal, but not these state charges. So what you see in this image is the Hennepin County Sheriff's Office, and they're gathering information. Okay, because remember, the county district attorney is the one who would bring these charges. So we have here, I'm just going to read this to you. Shortly after a U.S. ICE officer shot and killed a woman in Minneapolis on Wednesday, city leaders began to look into whether the officer had violated state criminal law. Remember, I was just telling you the federal guidelines. Let's talk about hard law at the state level. Minneapolis Mayor Jacob Frey said, we collectively are going to do everything possible to get to the bottom of this, to get justice, and to make sure that there is an investigation that is conducted in full. Police Chief Brian O'Hara, followed up by saying that the state's Bureau of Criminal Apprehension is investigating whether any state laws within the state of Minnesota have been violated. If they conclude that state law has been violated, the question is what's next? Contrary to recent assertions from some federal officers, states can prosecute federal officers for violating state criminal laws, and there is precedent for that. Okay, although federal officers, so this is important. Remember, Derek Chauvin was a local police officer, right? So let's talk about this. Although federal officers do have immunity in some circumstances, that protection applies only, listen up, only if their actions were authorized under federal law and quote unquote necessary and proper in fulfilling federal duties. When federal officers violate federal law or act unreasonably when carrying out their duties, they can face state charges. So again, I'm reading this piece by Brenna Godar. Very good, right? So let's look at some precedents. Okay, states have a long history of prosecuting federal officers for allegedly using excessive force on the job. And when the federal courts agree that the force may not have been legally justified, they have allowed the state prosecutions to proceed. So in other words, you would have a state prosecution begun, meaning we would have, in this case, the district attorney from Hennepin County would bring this case. And then in this case, the question would be, I guess I've got a couple of things. I'm not sure whether the charges would be filed in state court or federal court. But regardless, if the charges were to be filed even in federal court, state law would apply. Okay, so here's an example. In a high-profile incident from the 1990s, an FBI sniper shot and accidentally killed an unarmed woman while carrying out a siege of a cabin near Ruby Ridge, Idaho. U.S. Attorney General Janet Reno decided not to pursue charges right, against this FBI sniper. But a county prosecutor in the state did, charging the sniper with involuntary manslaughter. So that was charged at the state level in Idaho. Then, of course, this officer, this FBI sniper, challenged it in federal court. It goes all the way up to the Ninth Circuit, and the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals allowed the state prosecution to proceed, concluding that there was material questions of fact about whether the sniper's use of deadly force was reasonable. If it wasn't, he would be immune from state prosecutions. Unfortunately, the charges were dropped after the prosecutor who brought the case left. Okay, we also have precedents from 1906. Again, this is a great article for you to read. And remember, the key thing we want to look at here is this necessary and proper in fulfilling federal duties. So it gets a little tangly. Some of these things, will be, I think the key thing I want to say to you is the case would be brought in state court. This officer, this ICE officer, is going to challenge it, bring a challenge in federal court, asking the federal court to say, no, you can't, this must be dropped. So the only question we're saying is, will the federal courts take this case away from the jury, not even let it get to a jury? That is the question. And we will see this play out. Now, I've got a couple more things to talk about related to this before I get to what we can do next, because that's critical. The thing that is busting my heart open is how often this happens to Black people and generally people of color in America, and not just with ICE. And they have children, they have families, they have partners. And just like white people, same thing. They have families I'm trying to say an example. We have, we'll just use Renee, Nicole Good. They had a family, right? Everyone. I'm using they, and I don't mean us versus them. I mean they, these people, the white people, they, any people in America, they, right? So all of us, whether we are immigrants, regardless of who we are all human. And why is it that it takes to this moment of seeing this white woman shot for people to feel utterly floored? I want to show you a video that's been going around about ICE or DHS aggressively trying to create a situation of violence, trying to apprehend people in their car, and trying to take away their phones, because our phones are our evidence. I want to show you this, just to say this is endemic. We must abolish ICE.
Turn off your video. You're detained right now, so you're not free to record. No, we are free to record.
Yeah, we're free to record.
You're detained right now. So
no, we're not detained. No. They haven't told us we're detained.
They didn't say nothing about it. I'm telling you right now, you're
detained. No, we're not detained. Nope.
Look. I got that seal and recording already. And you are not allowed to do this.
They're not detained.
Get off the phone. Turn the phone off. Say it again.
Hey. Mira.
Hang on 1 second. If you hurt us, we'll put it on law.
Yeah.
Put your hands here.
Come on.
You want to go in cuffs? Come on. Come on. Hey. What?
Yeah, come on. All right.
Put your hands up. Interfere. Put your hands up.
Dale.
Put your hands up.
Dale.
You said you were going to hands right here. Go.
No les metas aquí con tu puta madre. No les metas aquí, okay? No les metas aquí.
Stop moving around.
No les metas aquí, okay?
You understand?
Why are you taking my phone away?
It's not clear that he speaks English fluently. It's not, they're giving him contradictory commands. They're saying, put your hands up, stop moving around, get out. Like, it is flippin' chaotic. This happens. This is happening all the time. We stand together or we hang alone. Okay? Now, again, one more thing I want to say as part of this. AOC, you saw her great interview with Midas Touch. They had their cameras up there and they're asking her, what do you think of this? And she's saying it's murder. There must be accountability. Then we have some Fox News reporters saying, hey, why don't you come on? I think it's Fox News. Why don't you come on our show? And she pushes back. And she does so in such a professional way. I learned something from this. Let's watch.
That's nice.
Would you join him?
He's accused me of, he has sexualized me on his show. He has sexually harassed me on his show. He has engaged in horrific, sexually exploitative
That's
rhetoric.
not true, Congresswoman.
It is true. It is true because he accused me of wanting to quote unquote sleep with Stephen Miller. So why don't you tell me what you think is acceptable to tell a woman? Thank you.
I don't know if they were asking her to go on Tucker Carlson's show. Maybe that's what it was in Fox News. But whatever it is, she said no, and she said why. And then she walked away. She stood in her power. We all need to stand in our power. Okay. So what can we do next? I have an idea for us friends. I just saw, and I thought this was great, something over on Blue Sky. And this is our friends over at Indivisible. And specifically, I think it is, here we go. Ezra Klein put this up. There is a call today that we can all join. And I'm going to pull this up. Here's how I'm pulling I'm trying to share this screen with you because this is the action we can take. The action we can take is oops, sorry. I don't want to, I accidentally was pre-filling with something and I need to un-pre-fill it. Okay, guys, let me try that one more time. Oops, sorry. I'm going to share this with you one more time and it will not pre-fill this time. Okay, so you can see this is a mobilize.us Indivisible event. I'm going to drop this in the chat. Okay, and it's a rapid response call. You can join from anywhere. It's tonight, 8 p.m. Eastern or 7 p.m. Central. And it will be to talk about what actions we can all take, right? I'm super excited about this because I'd like to hear what others are planning to do. I need to be in solidarity with folks who have great organizing skills. People will join from across the country, maybe even outside the country. We can't stand for this. We can't. And one last thing before I go. Yes, at 3 a.m, the New York Times reported an interview that they had done with Donald Trump. I happened to wake up, maybe it was at 2 a.m. I happened to wake up at 4 a.m. and read it. It's all about Venezuela and how we might stay there forever running their oil. I will not talk about that right now because I will not distract you from what is happening now, the need to react to abolish ICE. What I will also say is there's stuff going on in the Epstein case that should not get lost, right? We have the Oversight Committee is subpoenaing testimony from Les Wexner of Ohio, the billionaire bestie, right next to Donald Trump, of Jeff Epstein, as well as others. So they are continuing to move on that. There is no crazy town today, right? We are in mourning for not just this one mom, not just for Renee Nicole Good, but for everyone who is in this country scared and sad and angry and feeling like we don't have leaders who will stand up to this monster, please join with me on this call if you can. I'll report back about the call tomorrow so we don't feel so alone. Let's stand in our power together. Have a beautiful rest of your day, my friends. Oh, and thank you, as always, to my fabulous mods. I don't thank them enough. AJ, Deb, Jason, I couldn't do this without you.
Hello, prison mates. It's the Gen Taub Show. Well, welcome everyone. Let's learn about what is happening in politics yesterday and today. There was hope, and we are together in this democracy we work for. And again, welcome to the Gen Taub Show.